Hi, my name is Luana, and I'm a member of Group 2. Our group is working on the presentation, working in small group or communication in small group. Communicating effectively in small group can at times be a matter of life or death. Is that a bit of a stretch? No, not really. In his 2003 book, Reflection of Our Past, How Human History is Revealing Our Genes, John Henry Reliford asserted that failure or breakdown in communication among surgical team members can substantially increase the odds of complications or deaths for patients. For example, equipment could go missing, the wrong dosage or the wrong medication could be administered, specimen could be mislabeled, or even the wrong surgical procedures could be conducted. This just illustrates the fact that communication in small group is essential to our survival as humans. Before we proceed further, there's a need to know what small groups are and what they do. Our presentation will also answer the following questions. Why and how do people join small groups? How can people communicate effectively in the small groups? How do small groups generate ideas and make decisions? And how do leaders act leadership and exercise power in a small group? So at this point, what is a small group? A small group can be defined as three or more persons working interdependently and cooperatively to complete a project. The number of projects or tasks a small group can undertake and accomplish are endless. There are some distinctive characteristics that set small group apart from other society units. This section of the presentation summarizes 8 of them. Number 1, small groups are distinguished by their size. 2, small groups are interdependent. 3, small groups are cohesive. 4, small groups enforce rules and norms. 5, small groups include individual roles. 6, small groups have their own identities. 7, small groups have distinctive communication practices. And 8, small groups often interact online. At this time, we'll now turn over to Egla, who will now discuss the functions of a small group.
Hello, thank you. My name is Firmin Egla, and I'll talk about the small groups function. So, small groups function typically refer to the role or purpose that people fulfill within the small group setting. These functions are important for the group's dynamics, productivity, and overall effectiveness. So each member of a small group tends to fulfill one or more of these functions. So the effectiveness of the group, the small group, often depend on how well these functions are balanced and integrated. So I'm going to talk about 7 functions of small groups. The first one is small group usually focus on discrete tasks. So one function of the small groups is to accomplish a specific assignment and task. The second one is evaluate and advise. So the purpose of some small groups is to discuss and evaluate particular issue and give advice on how they should be addressed. So the third one is going to be create an idea. So many small groups exist primarily to create some sort of form of art. The fourth one is to provide service and support. Many small groups focus on providing community service to those who need it. The fifth one is going to be to promote social network. So some small groups simply help to meet other people to communicate and get to know each other. The sixth one is gonna be to compete. Many small groups are organized to um, take part in team competition. The seventh one is gonna be to help us learn. So we join some small group to help us learn, like study group, like our group. We are small groups. So I'm gonna let Benjamin talk about the joining of small groups. Thank you.
Okay. The joining of small groups can happen for many different reasons. For most people, there's one small group that we start with, and that's the family that we're born into. That's not a small group that we choose, though there are many other scenarios where we choose our small group. And I think we as humans, we all want to belong and have a sense of togetherness and community because we're social creatures. And friends and family can fulfill social need, but that belonging tends to come from other places. Many people join clubs to find like minded people and to find the sense of social belonging. And when we're in a group, we feel safer and more protected and confident in ourselves. And a common phrase that supports this idea is the idea of having strength in numbers. Another reason to join a small group would be to help you achieve a common goal like weight loss. Like if you join a workout club, you'll find like minded people who want to work out and get in better shape too, which, in my opinion, can really help motivate you and help you reach your goals. Um, Similar to this presentation, some small groups are not voluntarily joined, but you're put into small groups. And then in the joining of small groups, there's 5 stages. Before you join, it's the antecedent phase. This is the part where you kind of have your preconceived notions about groups, and you may come in with different expectations than what reality is. The next is the anticipatory phase, which is where we actually have more realistic expectations because we've decided to join. The third is the encounter, which is pretty self-explanatory, and it's when we first meet with our group. And after that is assimilation, where we join and we accept the culture and the expectations. And lastly is the exit, where we kind of just leave the group and move on to the next thing we're going to do. Small groups can help each other, have resources for what they need, as well as synergize and motivate each other, like I mentioned before with the workout club. A really important part of a small group is that you'll experience diversity in ideas and opinions. Um, and then another kind of drawback of a small group is making sacrifices. For example, in this group, we all have to find times that work together, and I have to cancel something, maybe someone else has to cancel something, or we have to push something back so we can meet our end goal, which is to finish this. And on top of all of that, small groups are pretty hard to coordinate. Another part is welcoming others into joining these small groups so they're comfortable and can assimilate into the group culture pretty easily. And then when you're that person who is joining the small group, you need to accept this culture and you need to like learn certain skills after you join. But to summarize everything in small groups, they're made up to 3 to 20 people to help people in the groups reach their goals. People join small groups by signing up for them or coming in person to do them. We do it for social validation in a sense of belonging or out of obligation. And we can all do our part to communicate in our small groups to be cohesive and work together to achieve things. And that completes chapter 9. So we're going to move on and give it over to Abir for chapter 10.
Okay, this is Abir Garafi, and today I'm going to talk about decision making and leadership in groups. Making critical decisions require communication. How do groups generate ideas and make decisions? How do leaders enact leadership and exercise power? What communication skills improve group decision making? Uh, Communication is key in when it comes to decision making. It's especially important when a group is interacting to generate idea to reach a decision. A group can generate idea through various methods. First, group can brainstorm. This technique allows group members to freely offer any idea they wish and create a list uh, of all these ideas before they are evaluated individually. But there is has rules must be placed to have a successful session. First, ask in their solutions, encourage all idea. Second, everyone in the group to contribute and allow member to piggyback of each other's idea. And second method, group can use the nominal group technique. The nominal group technique call for group member to generate their initial idea silently. Third method is group can idea write. The idea writing is proceed in 4 steps. First steps, each member create a list of 3 to 4 idea, including the reasons. Second step, each member choose a list from the pile that is not there. Third step, member create a list of new ideas they're created through working on other members' idea. And final steps, group member come together to create a list of idea they think are worthy of additional discussion. And after the idea have been put together, group can create a list using the different communication techniques. There can reach a decision which idea are the best through various methods. Some groups decide by anonymous consent. In this instance, a group would make a vote on what solution or option is the best. And some group decide by majority rule, and some group decide by minority rule, and some groups reach a decision through expert opinion, and some groups decide by authority rule. Finally, finding the best decision-making method depends on several factors that vary from decision to decision. And one factor is the importance of the decision itself. Thank you.
All right, I'm Eleni, and I have being a leader. Most leaders share some specific traits. These traits are not easily changeable, but can be worked on and improved. You always can learn to be an effective leader, but we are all not necessarily born with it. There are 3 physical traits that play a role in being a natural leader. Physical traits are things we can't change about ourselves. These are related to who is more likely going to be a leader, but there is no telling whether they'll be good or not. These skills can grow and be built upon over time, regardless of how you look. The first one is sex. Women are less favorable than men. Men are typically bigger and louder. Men get more positive reactions than females do. The second one is height. The taller you are, the more likely you'll be chosen. You will be taken more seriously than a short male or female. The third one is physical appearance. Having a masculine appearance, like a wider square jaw with smaller eyes, over a feminine face with a soft face, larger round eyes, and a smaller round jaw. The bigger the presence, the more of a threat people feel, giving off that dominant leadership appearance to others. Next, we have 3 psychosocial traits that play a role into leadership. These characteristics are related to personality and how we relate to others. The first one is self-esteem. Having a high self-esteem gives us the confidence to speak in front of others. Having a strong, loud voice is better and more convincing than a small, squeaky voice. When interviewing people, those with higher self-esteem rated themselves as better leaders than those with a lower self-esteem. Although we may rate our self-esteem high, that does not predict whether others perceive them as having good leadership skills and capability. The second one is self-monitoring. This is one's awareness to their behavior and how it affects one another. Some research suggests that those with great self-monitoring can work well with different groups, picking out what needs to be worked on in each group and adapt themselves to fit that position. And the third one is expressiveness. Lastly, leaders are more likely to be outgoing and expressive than shy and withdrawn from others. Being more outgoing gives you an advantage over being an introvert. This goes hand in hand with self-esteem. Being an extrovert is strongly related to being a good leader and having character traits like being friendly, assertive, and outgoing. This shows that you are more comfortable talking in front of strangers and talking sociably. Introverts are more likely to have anxiety and a fear of talking in front of strangers, especially larger groups. Even being an introvert, there are still some positives, like they often excel at listening, which leads to building a strong connection with your audience, and you're more willing to take advice from others. That's a big deal because you want to know how to improve things and hear others' opinions. Your idea isn't always the best solution or option. Many are not willing to take or like constructive criticism. Leaders exercise many forms of power. A leader takes control and likes to tell others what to do. We wonder why they like to do it. Sometimes it's to feel in control. Other times it's to impress their boss, to show they follow rules and like to keep everything in line, or they're scared of the consequences not following what's been said to do. There are 6 forms of power. 1 is reward. 2nd is coercive. 3rd is referent. 4th is legitimate. 5 is expert. And 6 is informational. And I'll be passing it to Henry.
Hi, I'm Henry, and we'll be looking at leadership and decision-making skills. Many factors can inhibit the ability of leaders and groups to function at their best. Skills that are useful for groups and their leaders are manage conflict constructively, avoid groupthink, and listen carefully. Conflict is not problematic. It can motivate groups to make more creative decisions than they otherwise might. Options for dealing with conflict are our concern for our own needs and desires and our concern for the other party's needs and desires. There are 5 major strategies to dealing with conflict. They are competing, avoiding, accommodating, compromising, and collaborating. With competing, it represents a high concern for our own needs and desires and a low concern of those of the other party. The goal is to win the conflict, and it's appropriate when the outcome is not shared, but this method also often causes resentment. Avoiding is a low concern for both self and the other party, often ignores conflicts in hopes that it goes away, helps maintain harmony, but often leaves matters unresolved. Accommodating reflects a high concern for the other party, but a low concern for self. You sacrifice so the other party wins. It helps keep the peace, but also causes resentment. Compromising, both parties in the conflict give up concerns for everyone's needs. This takes time and patience, but often comes with better outcomes. Collaborating is a high concern for both sides of the conflict. This is often the best way. It takes a lot of energy and is also time consuming. Avoid groupthink. Groupthink occurs when group members seek unanimous agreement despite their individual doubts. Some warning signs for groupthink are illusion of invulnerability. Group members are overly confident in their position, ignoring obvious problems. Conflict rationalization. Members explain away any ideas that are contrary to the group's position. Illusion of morality. Members believe that the decisions they make are morally correct, ignoring arguments to the contrary. Excessive stereotypes. Members construct negative stereotypes of anyone who disagrees with them. Pressure for conformity. Members feel pressure to conform to the group's decision and are branded as disloyal if they do not. Self-censorship. Members don't speak up if they have dissenting viewpoints. Illusion of unanimity. Members don't speak up because they believe everybody agrees on the same thing. Mind guards. Some members actively prevent the group from hearing about arguments of evidence against the group's position. Now, groupthink occurs when group has a strong authoritarian leader and is composed of members of similar backgrounds and is isolated from outside influence. How to avoid this, be aware for the potential for groupthink and teach and look for signs. Make sure a group has sufficient time to make decisions, encourage dissenting viewpoints, seek input from outside the group, and give important decisions a second chance. Now, some barriers to effective listening are noise, boredom, information overload, and rebuttal tendencies. A way to avoid this is to practice listening. And there's three types: informational listening, critical listening, and empathetic listening. How do groups generate ideas and make decisions? They can brainstorm, use nominal group technique and idea writing to generate ideas, and they can make decisions by unanimous consensus, majority rule, minority rule, expert opinion, authority rule. The preferred decision-making technique depends on the nature of the decision and on cultural context of the group. How do leaders enact leadership and power? Leaders can enact democratic, autocratic, or laissez-faire leadership styles, each of which has its own strengths. Leaders exercise several forms of power, including reward, coercive, relevant, legitimate, expert, or informational power over the people they lead. And I believe that concludes our presentation. Thank you for listening.